You lose your toy, buddy? You lose your toy? Yeah, you did. Here it is. What's this? What's this? Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. What a day I just had. Today was the protest at Wellesley and Jarvis. In many ways, it was easier than others, and in many ways, it was harder than others, you know? I think the thing that made it really difficult today, was I was physically assaulted 4 times. Yeah, that made it really difficult today. Like, no damage accrued, right? No damage accrued. Like, I'm not hurt, right? I didn't get my arm hurt or a leg hurt or anything like that, but I definitely, like, I got assaulted by 4 people, right? Major, how you doing? And there's something just existentially disheartening, right? About people so willing and so ready, like so ready to physically engage protesters and physically engage people who are fighting for disability, who are fighting for the poor. There's something very disheartening about it, to see how just snap quickly. And like, easy, some of these guys are Nazis. Easy, some of these guys were Nazis. Like, Nazis is the thing to call them. Yep. So during the protest, right? So how did this go? The first one was I'm fine, Major. Like, I'm not physically damaged. No physical damage. Like, not even a bruise, not even a cut. So it's just the existential aspect of it. The existential aspect of it. So the first one was like a young man. No, sorry. The first one was a mail worker. A man wearing a mailman's outfit. He came over to our equipment. We have 2 speakers set up, right? We have 2 speakers set up. And he comes over and he attempts to damage the equipment, right? He tips over one of the speakers. He's attempting to destroy the speaker. And so I come over and prevent him from doing so, right? And he grabs hold of me and ends up tripping himself up and falling to the ground and wraps his arms around my legs. And I very quickly realized that he's harmless. He's an older gentleman. He's not going to actually do any damage to me. And so I managed to get the speaker back in place, and I feel like my presence chases him off. And he sees very quickly, I don't want to say yes or no. All I can say is that he's wearing a Canada Post outfit. But that doesn't mean anything, right? That just means that at some point he managed to get his hands on a Canada Post outfit. That's all that means. So that doesn't mean that he is of the Canada Post, right? That just means that at some point he got his hands on it. Was he a homeless man? Was he, who knows? Because I get the equipment set up and then he's gone. The second assault was a younger man, a literal Nazi, who, when I confronted him about being a Nazi, basically admits to being a Nazi. He came over to, again, attack the equipment, right? And I get in his face and he gets in mine. But like all Nazis, he's a coward, right? And so as soon as he sees that there'll be a physical confrontation if he continues, he leaves. He watched for a little while, and I spoke to him, because he's a Nazi, obviously. He was saying things like, I do want to kill the disabled, right? The disabled should be euthanized, these sorts of things. So those people are real, right? Like never pretend otherwise. Never pretend otherwise. And the third assault was the most concerning one. There was a bald-headed man. The bald-headed gentleman really was getting physical with me. Like, the other two, once they saw that I was willing to assert myself and assert my presence, they shrunk away. He was unwilling to. And he continuously attempted to push forward in an effort to move and destroy the equipment. He's the one I really had to fight against. Fortunately, I think he had the wherewithal enough to realize that if he was going to throw punches, that's when things would get serious. And that I was willing, I just essentially was holding my arm in a stiff arm pattern, creating that distance, not showing that I wasn't willing to grapple or throw punches at him. And he was the one, he stuck around for quite a long time, saying things that I could only call deluded and clueless, right? Basic deluded conservative shit. Just like straight up deluded. Like, in one moment he would say that he thought we were awesome and that we were fighting for a good cause. And then in the other he would say that we were losers and bums. And his most persistent thing, and this is something I think is true across the board in liberal circles, is what you're doing is not, this is not how you protest. This is not what should be done, right? The right way to protest. There are the right places to protest. And they just don't want to hear that they don't, those things don't work anymore. That the system is not responsive. It's not responding, right? They are ignoring us. Like, we have gone to Queen's Park. We do protest at Queen's Park. We have written the letters. We have talked to these people. They ignore us. It's very straightforward. Like, even 2 years ago, I would have taken these guys and what they're saying in that regard. And I had a very nice conversation with a man who was talking this way, very frankly and not disrespectfully, right? It was an older gentleman who said to me, I don't think what you're doing, like, I appreciate the energy and the support, but I think that this is not going to work, or it's not proper, right? That you should do this, you should do that. And I told him straight. I said to him, just as I'm saying to you now, I said, 2 years ago I would have believed that. 2 years ago I would have heard that. That's over. These people aren't listening to us. They're not responding to us. You take a look at what's going on in the UK, right, with Liz Truss. Do you think Liz Truss gives a shit if you go and protest in front of Big Ben or whatever, right? If you go to Parliament and do a protest, do you think that Liz Truss gives a shit at all? No, obviously not, right? And then the fourth assault was the saddest, because in response, we were protesting outside of the ODSP building, right? We were protesting outside of the ODSP building. And in response to our protest outside of the ODSP building locked down. And what that means is that they locked down so people couldn't get support. They couldn't get access to the service. And so one gentleman who was obviously high or on some kind of a drug, I couldn't tell you what drug he was on, but he was obviously on something, made this connection of the place is locked because of this protest, so I need to shut down the protest, right? And so he comes at us in an attempt to destroy the equipment. And in many ways, he was the scariest of all of them because of his erraticness. But even he, in that moment and in that state that he was in, I think saw that saw the confluence of events, and even though he was emotionally driven exclusively, like there was nothing intelligent about what he was doing. And in the end, I can respect his position the most, because his position was, I need access to the support. The meager support that I have, I need access to it. And you are the ones that are blocking my access to it. And I think once he realized that we weren't going to be there for much longer, he laid off. But he definitely was the most. And again, it was just presenting myself with a stiff arm, right? Moving into his way when he attempted to get at the equipment. And then once the police arrived, which the police arrived after about an hour, which has become common. That's what I expect now, that the police are not going to arrive on the scene until about an hour has passed. And I actually have the third assailant, I think, to thank most for that, because he was talking to the police and phoning the police regularly, which I'm like, great, bring the police. Like, the police help us. Like, the police bring stability to this. Has been my experience, for the most part. And so, once the police arrived, things stabilized a little bit more. Not a great turnout. Not a great turnout, which I'm kind of getting used to. I'm getting used to people saying that, yeah, we support this idea, and yeah, okay, yeah, we should raise disability and all that kind of stuff, but, getting out there, 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, or, I don't know, And Isabella, I think, was very disappointed because she had been getting a lot more support through her Facebook group than usual, and there was more excitement going around, and I think she was hoping that was going to translate. And then a couple of people who did show up were newcomers. I hadn't seen them previously, and it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that they didn't know what they were getting into, right? What we are doing is not like walking up and down a cobblestone path in front of Queen's Park, right? We're blocking streets. We're dealing with the public in the worst possible way. We're dealing with the public when they're behind the wheel of a car. We're dealing with the public when they are in transit, right? When we are interrupting and disrupting people when they are attempting to get places, and we know that. We know that. We're not attempting to hug people here. We're attempting to leave scars. We know. We know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. And I think that there were some newcomers who came who almost immediately, they put 2 and 2 together. They hadn't put 2 and 2 together until they were on the street. And once they were on the street, they were like, oh, this is what this is. That the whole of humanity will come down upon you. That all of humanity will pile upon you, and the eye of Sauron and the glowering eye of humanity will glare at you unkindly. And you do it anyway. Because as long as they're glaring, at least they're seeing you. At least they see you as they glare upon you with their dismissive eye. And that's better than being invisible. That's better than being invisible. And that's the reason why I do it. That's the reason why I think it must be done. And there are people I respect, who disagree, because they see these events as moments to recruit. They're seeing it as a way, no, we should be trying to recruit people and trying to bring people in, and I don't see these events that way. They're not recruitment drives. That the recruitment drives should lead to these events. That these events are not the events to recruit. These are you're not attempting to recruit people on the front line of a war. You're not attempting to recruit people along the front line of a war. That you fight on the front line of the war. You don't recruit people on the front line of the war. And you're going to lose people to attrition, and you're going to lose people because they don't realize what the fight actually looks like. You're going to lose people. It's just the truth. That's just the nature of the fight. And the hard reality is that this is what it takes. This is what it takes to move from being invisible to seen. That if you want to be seen, if you are homeless, if you are disabled, if you are in poverty, you are invisible. The society has structured itself, and the system of capital has structured itself on purpose to make people in desperation, disability, and homelessness invisible. It has been done systematically, and it has been done by policy, and it has been done on purpose. And if you want to become visible against a machine that is working overtime to make you invisible, this is what must be done. There is no other alternative. There is no other alternative. And yes, it's alienating. And yes, it creates enemies. And yes, it chases away people who don't respect the fight. The liberals, essentially. Yes, it does all of those things. And you do it anyway. Because I don't know about you, but I refuse to die quietly. I refuse to die silently. I refuse to be discarded into homelessness. I refuse to be discarded into poverty. I refuse to be abused by a system that is enriching a wealthy group of disconnected parasites quietly. I will not bow my head. There was one person there who went by the name of Taryn. She said something to me that was very sobering, and I'm going to try my best to abide by their wishes. That the entire time that they were there, all they did the whole time is that they came into the street with us and they sat in the street. They had their own chair and they sat in the street. And it was very anchoring. It was very anchoring that just this space is occupied by this person and this person is there. And they didn't walk up and down and wave a flag. They didn't make speeches. They didn't do anything. They literally just found their spot in the street and occupied it. And I was so grateful. I was so grateful that they were there. And you guys know me when I do my speeches and I make my stuff and I make my conversations. Like, I say psychopath. I say psychosis. I say narcissist. I say these things. And afterwards, I spoke with them and I expressed my gratitude for their presence. I found it very grounding. And they simply said to me, very not judgmental, no anger, as simply as I'm going to say it now, I really appreciate what you do. I have schizophrenia. And I don't like it when you use the word psychosis to refer to these types of people. And so I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to try to do better. Because at the end of the day, they're absolutely right. That to use such language to describe the parasites who have taken over our society does a disservice to those who legitimately suffer. And if that's the only takeaway I walk away from today, if that's the only thing that I learn, then it was worth it. It was absolutely worth it. I simply feel it shouldn't be this hard. I simply feel it shouldn't be this difficult to convince a people, hey, maybe don't abandon the most vulnerable of your citizens. Maybe we should take care of the vulnerable. Maybe we should take care of the disabled. And even if there are people who are fraudulently siphoning wealth away from the system, who are faking it, that sounds like a pretty big mental illness that they've got there. It sounds like they need the help. I wish it wasn't this hard. I wish it was as simple as writing a letter. I wish it was as simple as gathering in front of Queen's Park. I wish it was as simple as voting for the right candidate. I truly, truly wish it were the case. But I see now that those are just the wishes of a child. No different than saying, I wish Santa Claus was real. I wish Jesus Christ would come back. I wish the aliens would land. I wish I could just vote my problems away. Now is the time for adults. Now is the time for the millennials to grow up and to take their place as the adults in the room and to have serious adult conversations with one another about how we expect to live in this apocalypse and this catastrophe that we've designed for ourselves. We are ruled by children and parasites, and the loudest voices in the room are the most childish. We have to grow up. We have to grow up and discard these fantasies and fairy tales and accept that the world is not the way we want it to be or that we wish it to be, and face the world as it is. What's so pathetic about all of it is that Ford isn't even moving forward with the 5% increase that he promised. That pathetic little offering. He's not even doing that. And so we fight. Thank you so much for all of your support, guys. Thank you so much for all your support. I appreciate it. I'm well, Ligon Z. I'm well. I'm okay, Major. This today cuts to the bone, though. Sorry to hear of the assaults. That's terrible. I know. No, I know. And it's sad. It's sad to me. It's sad to me. Yeah, it's scary to remember people want us dead just for being disabled, right? Useless eaters, right? Just wait for all of that to return. Wait for all of that to return, right? They're doing it through the MAID system, right? Oh, we're expanding the MAID system to help people, right? That's what they'll say. Well, that's kind of you to say, Major. It's brave. That's kind of you to say. I don't know. I get to think, what is life for? What do we seek to accomplish? Why are we here? We're not simply here to just watch television, you know. We're not simply here to do any of that kind of stuff. Hi, Conton. How you doing? I hope you're doing well out there. Oh yeah, of course, Conton. I just appreciate that you're here. I just appreciate that you're here. I appreciate that all of you guys are here. You know? I'm having an intense day. I feel the come down. I feel the come down. Hey Ben, how you doing? I wanted to point out, as you can see, I don't have a lot of links because I literally got in at like 5:45. Just like found a couple of things to talk about. So this will be all over the place, guys. Hey, Base, how you doing, bud? How you doing? Total family wealth by Wealth Group. Trillions of 2019 dollars, right? The first color you see here, right? Top 20%. As you can see, 1989. Of course, there's the dip. That's the 2008 financial collapse right there. Right back up they go, right? Nice little boom. If you are in the 51st to 90th percentile, you're quote unquote middle class, I suppose. Since 1989, you've seen a sort of increase, I suppose, right? From 89 to 2007, so right before the financial collapse, there was the tiniest of incremental growth, right? So the share of the 51st to 90th percentile, so the next 40% of the society, well, their share of everything grew by, it looks like, 5% or something like that. But then look, it dips back down. The financial collapse hurting them as well. And check it out. It goes right back. And so it's about back to where it was in 2004. So in 20 years, the middle class has gotten nothing. Is that the relationship that we see with the upper class, the top 10%? And then if you really squint your eyes and really lean into the screen, you can see that in 1989, here's the bottom line, the bottom 50%. The bottom 50% of the society have this much wealth. And in 2008, just like everybody else, their share of that wealth dipped and then never recovered. So at least the upper class experienced a dip and then recovered eventually. Well, the bottom 50% of the society never actually recovered. Meanwhile, top 10%, sure, they had a big dip, but now look, they've recovered from where they were and then some. Because it's a system of extraction. It's a system of extraction. Yep, keep in mind, a lot of the most important necessities have increased at above the pace of inflation. Yeah, why wouldn't the parasite class try to parasiticize the system more? Why wouldn't they demand more? Where are you going to go? They own the system. Where are they going to go? Where are you going to go? Right? Who are you going to talk to? Right? And the government has already shown repeatedly that it's going to bail out. Like, so not only are you competing, like let's say you wanted to start a small business and say to yourself, I'm gonna compete with these guys because they're gouging people, so I'm gonna offer this at a reasonable rate. Right? Okay. Well, so not only are you going to be competing with the gougers, right? Competing with the corporate oligarchs, you're also competing with the government. Because the government has shown time and time again that it's completely willing to bail these people out. Completely willing to. So they can basically just do what they want, make whatever mistakes they want, destroy whatever economy they like, and lose as much money as they like. Because at the end of the day, the government will turn around and quantitative ease them or whatever. Right? Just give them money and bail them out. We know they will. And moreover, so does the corporate sector. They know they will. Right? So why shouldn't they just act recklessly? Why shouldn't they act in a way that's going to destroy the society, right? It's going to, not only is it going to make them more money to do so, but if it gets the society in trouble, the response is that we get more money. So they're rewarded for their malfeasance. They're rewarded for being destructive. They're rewarded for doing it. So why shouldn't they? Fascism sucks, right? It sucks to see the government and the corporate sector merge itself in a fascist arrangement. It's terrible. It's terrible for the society, right? And we're only just beginning. We're only just beginning. Major says, it's annoying how my very existence costs monies, ventilators, hospital beds, wheelchairs. I feel tied to capitalism like it were a ship as it sinks into the darkness of the sea. Yeah. There is a little part of me that kind of looks forward to the catastrophes, you know? That right now there's this odd sense of stabilization. Not stabilization. Like, I was speaking with a couple of other organizers. Barry and Daniel were there. It was very nice to see them from Socialist Action, right? Links in the description. It was nice to speak with them. And we got speaking very briefly about why can't we get more people out? Why aren't more people coming out? And I'm starting to recognize and realize that it's not apathy. It's not even that people disagree with what's happening. It's that people intrinsically know that the building is falling over, that the building is here, that maybe they lack the capacity to articulate that. They lack the capacity to understand and articulate, or intellectually understand and articulate that the building is falling over and has reached the point of no return. At least the economy has, right? Like, maybe the ecosystem, right? Maybe. So people I think people realize that going out and protesting and going out and fighting is fruitless, they believe. Because the building falls over no matter what. The building collapses no matter what. So us going out and protesting isn't going to prevent the collapse. The collapse has already happened. That now we're all just bracing for the impact. And what that means is that we are going to be looking at a populace very shortly who will be looking for legitimate solutions. Enormous amounts of the public will reach for fascism and will see fascism as a solution. And it's up to us to provide an alternative solution. That alternative solution manifesting itself very clearly in simple things. How Mondragon became the world's largest co-op. This is from the New York Times. Oh, sorry, the New Yorker. Adam, you're saying all that shit that happened to you today. Hey, you know what? Forget about it, huh? Forget about Cabby. Yeah, fuck it, man. You can't be worried about that shit. Life goes on, man. Big Lebowski. Life goes on. Life goes on. In Spain, an industrial-sized conglomerate owned by its workers suggests an alternative future for capitalism. I like that they're spinning it to be like, capitalism's still good, guys. Here's how we salvage capitalism. Jorge Vega Hernandez, a mechanical engineer working in southwestern Spain, returned from a business trip and started to feel sick. It was March 2020, the beginning of the pandemic, and so he called a government helpline. He was told that he might have the coronavirus, and so he should stay home. But without leaving the house for a test, Hernandez couldn't get proof of his illness, and without that proof, he had no excuse for not coming into work. A week after he got sick, he said his company fired him. The firm cited insufficient job performance as the motive. Alone and newly jobless during lockdown, Hernandez, who was 32 at the time, considered his life. He was an engineer with expertise in the automotive industry, so finding a new position wouldn't be difficult. But he didn't want just any new job. He wanted to work for a company that treated workers decently. His girlfriend, who lived in the Basque region of northern Spain, suggested that he consider a position within a group of worker-owned cooperatives there called Mondragon. The Mondragon Corporation, as it's known, is a voluntary association of 95 autonomous cooperatives that differs radically from a conventional company. Each co-op's highest paid executive makes at most 6 times the salary of its lowest paid employee. There are no outside shareholders. Instead, after a temporary contract, new workers who have proved themselves may become member owners of their co-ops. A managing director acts as a kind of CEO within each co-op, but the members themselves vote on many vital decisions about strategy, salaries, and policy. And the vote of all members, whether they are senior management or blue collar, count equally. When individual cooperatives do well, their members share in the profits. When times are hard, the cooperatives collectively support one another, sharing funds and reallocating workers among themselves to preserve jobs. During the pandemic, workers at many Mondragon co-ops voted to temporarily reduce their own salaries or hours until markets recovered. People who felt sick were trusted and encouraged to stay home. The treatment Hernandez said he received when he was fired would be almost impossible within Mondragon, since worker owners must vote to dismiss one another, and this can occur only in cases of very severe misconduct. Worker-owned cooperatives are often considered both idealistic and inefficient. The model is seen as suitable, mainly for upscale grocery stores or boutique bakeries in progressive towns. At a 2019 conference, The economist Larry Summers characterized co-ops as intrinsically sleepy and short-sighted. When you put workers in charge of firms and you give them substantial control over the firms, he said, the one thing you do not get is expansion. You get more for the people who are already there. And yet, Mondragon is not a sleepy grocery store. Its collection of co-ops employs around 80,000 people, and 76% of those who work in manufacturing co-ops are owners. One makes bicycles at an industrial scale. Others make elevators or produce huge industrial machines used in the production of jet engines, rockets, and wind turbines. Mondragon's businesses include schools, a large grocery chain, a catering company, 14 technology R&D centers, and a McKinsey-like consulting firm. In 2021, the network brought in more than 11 billion euros in revenue. The collective enforces 505 types of patents and employs about 2,400 full-time researchers. It also owns subsidiaries in countries including China, Germany, and Mexico, and competes effectively in international markets, winning contracts from firms such as General Electric and Blue Origin. The odds are good that key elements of something within 100 feet of you, an espresso maker, a gas grill, a car, were made at Mondragon. We are kind of a mirror for conventional companies, and in it they do not see a very beautiful image. Ander Etzgerbera, Mondragon's director of cooperative dissemination, told me as we drove between co-ops in the Basque Country. A slender, affable man who speaks many languages, Etzgerberia is essentially a professional explainer of Mondragon to its roughly 2,000 annual visitors. It was a warm spring afternoon as he rolled down the windows and gestured to the passing countryside as we drove. A flock of sheep clustered on a hillside above the squat, rectangular headquarters of a precision machine tooling co-op. We passed a bank, a language instruction school, a grocery store, a factory, each owned by its workers. Mondragon's networks of co-ops, many clustered along Spain's Deba River, has managed to survive nearly 70 years of capitalism's creative destruction. Its persistence suggests that there are fairer and more sustainable ways of doing business. But whether a version of its model could be replicated outside of one beautiful region of northern Spain is an open question, debated within Mondragon and beyond. The collective has a unique history, and its density powers a rare feedback loop in which cooperative values shape institutions, which then reinforce the same values, spiraling outward to defend and define an entire way of life. Mondragon is an inspiring and successful experiment. Will it ever be repeated? The town of Mondragon, in a green river valley surrounded by the Cantabrian Mountains, is home to some 22,000 people. A medieval city occupies the town center, with stone archways that soar over cobbled streets and a medieval Gothic church in a central square. The remains of Jose Maria Ariz M. Mendiarieta, the Catholic priest who founded the Mondragon cooperatives, are buried inside. Born in 1915, Ariz Mendiarieta lost an eye in a childhood accident, mobilized during the Spanish Civil War. But unable to take part in the fighting, he still served as a Basque language journalist for a publication opposed to the nationalists led by Franco. He was arrested by Franco's forces and spent a month in prison before being released. After the war, he became a priest and was assigned by the church to the town of Mondragon in 1941, when he was 25. He found that the area's economy was deeply impoverished, with virtually no middle class, and that its society had been fractured by civil war. He mobilized citizens to launch civic and cultural initiatives, including a soccer field, a medical clinic, and a housing complex for workers. Since the early 20th century, a locksmithing factory in Mondragon had been employing local boys, who sometimes started at the age of 14, clocked 50-hour weeks, and had few prospects without further education. Upon arrival, Arizmendiarita began using the local Catholic Action Center to educate people through study circles, which met in a converted 17th century palace. In 1949, in 1943, Arizmendiarita created a technical school. Students there worked at the factory in the morning and attended classes in the afternoon. Eventually, he selected a group of promising workers who, in the evenings, began pursuing long-distance degrees in engineering. By 1956, 5 members who had finished their degrees left their factory jobs to launch a cooperative company that produced kerosene heaters. More industrial co-ops began appearing throughout the valley, drawing workers from the technical school and collaborating with one another to share expertise. Thus was born the Mondragon experiment. The growth of the co-ops followed a pattern. An obstacle would confront local workers, and new co-ops would be created to overcome it. When, in 1958, the Spanish Ministry of Labor excluded the new worker owners from the National Social Security system, arguing that they were not eligible for workers' benefits because they were also part owners, Arizmendiarita created an internal pension and healthcare system that was itself organized as a cooperative. It still exists today, supplying sick leave, parental leave, a generous pension, unemployment benefits, and medical insurance to Mondragon's worker owners. The Spanish government has long since revised its position and provides coverage for co-op members, in addition to that offered by Mondragon. To meet the need for affordable financing, Arizmendiarita organized a cooperative bank. On my first afternoon in Mondragon, Exberia and I walked into the dark interior of the church beside the central square. I could hear a choir rehearsing a hymn. Exberia pointed to the tomb of Arizmendiarita on the one side of the central aisle. A stack of pamphlets lay beside it, and I took one. It was part of a campaign to canonize the priest, whom it described as the apostle of cooperation. I stood for a while, absorbing the atmosphere. The Mondragon Corporation has no official position on the canonization campaign, but Arizmendiarita is venerated even among the secular. I saw that the pamphlet included a suggested prayer to Arizmendiarita and information on whom to contact if it were answered. I walked back out into the sun. There are earthquakes, tsunamis, tornadoes, and there is Arizmendiarita. Exberia told me in the square. We are lucky he struck here. Hernandez was hired by a Mondragon co-op called Soralus in 2021, and now hopes to work there permanently at the end of his 2-year temporary contract. Located in a nearby town, the co-op occupies a boxy facility, roughly the size of 5 football fields, and employs 265 people in the Basque Country to design and manufacture large milling and boring machines used to help produce wind turbines, boat engines, and components for airplanes and spaceships. Futuristic equipment looms over the factory floor, with workers buzzing around, making adjustments. On a dizzy spring morning, 9 members of Soralus's Social Council, an elected group that facilitates information sharing between managers and workers, gathered in a brightly lit conference room for their monthly meeting with Soralus's president, and Raphael Idogoras, the co-op's managing director. The men and women were casually dressed. Most were drinking espresso from paper cups. Idogoras projected his laptop onto a screen and embarked on a brisk presentation in Spanish about Soraluce's strategy. First, he showed a pie chart of 2021 sales by country around the world. Then he offered details on a new manufacturing facility that was soon to be built at a cost of 8 million euros. As an industrial rumble suffused the room from below, he went over the co-op's 40 million euro investment in R&D over the past decade. A man interrupted by standing up, then announced that he just received an email confirming the sale of a 1.8 million euro machine to a company in Germany. Applause broke out around the table. "What are you still doing here?" someone joked. "Go sell another." Fred Frudelich, a professor of organization and cooperative enterprise at Mondragon University, a co-op descendant of the original technical school, which offers bachelor's and graduate degrees to many of Mondragon's future workers, told me that visitors are often surprised by how much information the cooperatives share internally. Conventional companies regularly brief investors and shareholders on earnings, strategy, and the health of the business. Mondragon's co-ops share the same detailed information with worker owners, who buy into their co-ops by making one-time payments of roughly 16,000 euros in most co-ops. Funds from the buy-ins are stored in individual accounts, which can earn interest of up to 7.5% a year. If a co-op goes out of business, a rare occurrence, the funds disappear, but in good years, a portion of its dividends is added to the balance. At Soraluce, Idogoras told me, typical worker owners have about €250,000 euros in their accounts by the time they retire, often at age 62. A co-op's General Assembly, comprising all of its members, elects a governing council, which then appoints a managing director. The system is vulnerable to the habits of its voters. Although 42% of Mondragon owners are female, only 29% of governing council members are women. Still, the fact remains that Idogoras, the managing director, works for Soraluce's members rather than the reverse. It's as if Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, had been chosen by a committee elected by a broad sample of the bank's workforce: receptionists, cashiers, cleaners, investment analysts. If JP Morgan adopted Mondragon's 6-to-1 pay ratio, Dimon's compensation would be capped at 6 times that of his lowest paid employee. While it's hard to estimate his hypothetical salary too narrowly, he would almost certainly make less than $1 million, instead of the more than $84 million he earned in 2021. And his decisions would be subject to approval by workers. Furthermore, if JP Morgan were a Mondragon co-op, its profits and staff would sometimes be shared with Basque co-op versions of Bank of America and Wells Fargo. It's easy to assume that such arrangements must impair productivity. But multiple academic studies have found that cooperatives with worker governance and ownership are as profitable or more profitable than ordinary firms. Researchers note that in co-ops, incentives are better aligned. People benefit directly when their co-op succeeds, and so they are more committed. The same principle motivates work at many startups. They also find that democratic governance empowers workers to suggest improvements and increase their satisfaction. Certainly, many people seem to stay at Mondragon because they enjoy working there. If I worked outside of Mondragon, I would earn more money. Ian Belza, an engineer and industrial director at Fagor Automation, told me, but I prefer to live here, with a lot of people and friends, than alone, like a king. Much of the social life in the town of Mondragon happens in culinary clubs, hybrids between clubs and restaurants that are managed cooperatively, with logistics handled by rotating committees. New members can join a culinary club only after their applications have been approved in a vote. Membership fees are around €20 a month. If you belong to a culinary club, you simply reserve the facilities, show up with friends and food, and enjoy full use of a fancy, well-stocked professional kitchen and bar. Members are trusted to record whatever they use, and accounts are settled monthly. On a warm weekday evening, I had a dinner at a culinary club on the second floor of a building in the old town. The interior of the club felt vaguely medieval, with dark wood panels, exposed stone walls, and a mellow glow from recessed lights. Beltza, the engineer from Fagor Automation, was grilling T-bone steaks on the industrial range as a small group chatted in the dining room, eating txtora, a local sausage from gleaming silver trays. Etzikberia, wearing a yellow hoodie and sipping a glass of local red wine, was recalling an old legend about a dragon that had once terrorized the people of Mondragon. He came down from his cave in the mountains to eat people, Etzikberia said of the dragon. The villagers told him, "If you only come once a year, we will give you the most beautiful young woman in town." But this was not a good solution, so they tricked him. They made a woman out of wax, and when he began to eat it, it melted in his mouth. Then all the iron workers rushed forward together and killed him with their tools. He paused for dramatic effect before intoning the lesson. In other towns, they hired St. George to kill their dragons, but in Mondragon, we killed him cooperatively. The story provoked a burst of laughter and commentary. "Come on," said a photographer in a black leather jacket whose family owned a local non-cooperative company that manufactures keys. As an allegory for the Mondragon cooperatives, the myth is irresistible. The poverty of post-Civil War Spain, the oppression of the Franco dictatorship, the 2008 crash, the pandemic, the co-ops have subdued many menacing dragons through collective action. But the model also has limits. To some critics, Mondragon's overseas workers, who are not owners, it outsources to low-cost locations, operating 132 production plants in 32 countries, are a sacrifice to the dragon of capitalism. Noam Chomsky has made admiring remarks about Mondragon, but has also argued that the cooperatives still exploit workers in South America as they do things that are harmful to the society as a whole. In a system in which businesses must make a profit in order to survive, Chomsky added, they have no choice. Members of Mondragon's management defend these overseas plants, which are often located close to the assembly site of its large customers. One executive with experience in running these plants noted that profit sharing presupposes profit, and that worker ownership requires a successful business for workers to own. If Mondragon were to situate its factories only in Spain, he told me, the collective would be unable to compete globally. You guys hear this? You guys hear this? What a character. If Mondragon were to situate its factories only in Spain, he told me, the collective would be unable to compete globally, forcing it to reduce its homegrown workforce. He also pointed out that in Mexico, Mondragon had studied the possibility of organizing some of its factories into cooperatives, but it didn't go through with it. The Mondragon executive cited a lack of co-op-friendly laws in the country, as well as insufficient interest among foreign workers. Similar studies in other countries did not lead to the creation of foreign Mondragon co-ops. Not everyone has found these arguments persuasive. Frudlich, a professor of Mondragon University, told me, there are worker-owned companies who have figured out how to share ownership with their subsidiaries overseas. If they can do it, we should be able to do it. Over dessert, at the culinary club, I mentioned a refrain I'd heard throughout my visit. Many people had told me that the original spirit of cooperativism was declining. The rise of overseas subsidiaries was one sign of this decline, and so was the gradual widening of the pay ratio between Mondragon's top executives and lowest paid workers. Originally, it was 3-1. In 1972, it became 4.5-1, and since the late 1980s, it has been 6-1. Perhaps the true dragon was a slow decay of the cooperative ethos. Xavier or Metexia, a dark-haired 27-year-old engineer at a co-op, was the youngest person at the table and the grandson of one of the Mondragon's original 5 founders, who worked alongside Erismendiarita the priest. He nodded in agreement and offered a dictum. Hard times make strong people. Strong people make good times, and good times make weak people, he said. He meant that the co-op spirit had been stronger in the mid-20th century when Spain was haunted by the specters of Franco and war. Around the table, there were murmurs of assent. Ormetexia described a recent controversy within the Fagor group of cooperatives. Engineers and managers had proposed raises for themselves that would help bring their salaries closer to market rates. The salaries would not exceed the 6-1 ratio, but would be near the top end of the range, creating a larger internal pay gap. Upset by the proposal, some workers near the bottom of the pay scale at Fagor Industrial, one of the group's co-ops, convened an extraordinary General Assembly, at which members discussed and voted on the proposal. In the end, it passed by a wide margin. If we're going to compete, it will go up. Ormetexia predicted of the 6-1 ratio. I don't know when, and I don't know how much, but it will. Mondragon's salary ratio cap, he concluded, reminded him of a popular Basque soccer club, Athletic Bilbao, which plays in Spain's top division and uses a local origin rule, only hiring players born or trained in the Basque country. A noble bit of idealism that, some say, limits the club's ability to compete at the highest level. They can do pretty well, but they cannot compete with the best, who pay for the most talented players in the world, he said. They can still win, the photographer, a fan of the Basque soccer team, objected. Then he added, even if they don't, it's better to keep local players. To let people inside Mondragon, even minor changes can seem to signal a catastrophic decline in values. But to outsiders, the collective remains a baffling business from another dimension. Inigo Usen, the president of Mondragon, told me that American and Chinese visitors often confuse its model with a form of communism. Usen recalled one American businessperson who asked how Erismendiarita could be a real priest if he was a communist. Another struggled to understand why one would start a co-op if it didn't enjoy special tax advantages. Tax law in the Basque country treats cooperatives and conventional companies differently, but their total obligations are similar. American executives can seem less curious about how co-ops work than about what kind of car Usen drives, a BMW 3 Series. The culture shock is mutual. Usen told me he couldn't believe how much well-paid American executives were willing to reduce the wages of their comparatively underpaid employees. America's current economic arrangements, he argued, are completely unsustainable. How many poor people are there in the United States is unbelievable, he said. Something is clear. In the future, things have to change. At the same time, it wouldn't be easy for the Mondragon model to succeed in a country like America, Usen thought. You can't have cooperatives without cooperative people, he said. On my last night in Spain, I met Alberto Gorongorgoitia, the son of one of the original 5 founders and a vice president at Mondragon. He walked me through the old town's narrow streets, pausing to point out the house where he'd been born, the location of the Young Catholic Action Center, where youth people had gathered into study circles, and an apartment where Erismendiarita had lived. At a bar near a towering stone archway, we found a table inside. It was early evening. The light was soft, and the whole town seemed to be out socializing. Kids rode past on scooters, Teens cruised in small packs, and adults clustered around tables at cafes and bars. Every few minutes, someone walking past would stop to chat with Goran Ogoitia. He, too, worried that the cooperative values in Mondragon were declining. We have to keep something different inside of us, something more humane, if we want this model of business to continue, he said, frowning. I mentioned my own country, America, and he seems to cheer up. The US was a reminder that things could be worse. Compared to practices at places like Amazon or Uber, Mondragon seems like a shocking success. When I asked Ormatexia if he thought Mondragon's 6-to-1 pay ratio would ever explode to match America's, a study by the Economic Policy Institute on America's largest companies found that in 2020, the comparison ratio between CEOs and typical workers was 350 to 1. He was doubtful. It could not happen here, he said. They would vote against it. Our conversation turned to the many recent declarations of support for corporate social responsibility by major American and European companies. Goran Goitia was very skeptical of such statements, which he saw more as a matter of marketing than of genuine commitment. Corporate social responsibility is all too often lies, he said, and took a sip of beer. Goran Ogoitia looked into the distance and reminisced. Arizmendiaritia died of complications from heart disease in 1976 at the age of 61. Goran Goitia recalled how his father, along with other founders, had felt orphaned. His gesture at everything surrounded us. They couldn't have imagined that it would grow into all of this. He recalled his father telling him about a senior religious functionary from the Vatican who'd once visited Mondragon to collect evidence of miracles for Arizmendiaritia's possible canonization. As he left, the visitor made a half-joking comment that Goran Goitia thought struck home. Even setting aside the supernatural, Mondragon's cooperatives looked like a kind of miracle. If that's true, they're a miracle of an unusual kind, one that actually exists and could be repeated. That was a very hopeful story. It was a very hopeful story there. And honestly, I feel like the most hopeful part about that story that I just read is that it's in the New Yorker. It does pay to remember. It does pay to remember that there are institutions in America that understand that what has happened is the failure of capitalism. Ironically enough, if you want to see like the organization that's throwing the most heat right now is actually Teen Vogue, if it can be believed. Let's just go to Teen Vogue, see if they've got anything hot. Teen Vogue. Every time I look at these guys, oh, I know, Milo, Teen Vogue. What's this bullshit that John's saying here? Teen Vogue. Right? Anytime I go to Teen Vogue, you know, you get this, the thousands of Virginia students are walking out for trans rights, right? Stranger Things, Hailey Bieber, right? Like all of the bullshit you would expect, right? But then if you go to politics, abortion story, what it's like to be a low-income student at an Ivy League school. Meet the young Syrian journalist who went viral. What it's like to be the child of a January 6th insurrectionist. These are all fairly like progressive articles, but I have 100% seen articles that were literally like, we need to be reading Marx. Like, we need to be reading Marx. Yeah, the obsessive focus on the Queen's death is a distraction. There you go. There's a take that comes right out of my mouth, right? So there are institutions and there are places that are actually looking at the catastrophe of capitalism and asking themselves, is there not a better way? Right? Is there not a better way? Oh, well, if you're going to compare me to Stuart McLean, you're goddamn right. They should fucking hire me. I'm the greatest. Okay, buddy, you can't bark. Barking is off limits. If you bark, you hurt everybody's ears, okay? I know. All right. Yeah, can I work in the design office? Yeah. I want to work in the coal mines. Yeah. Worker-owned combat contractor company. Yeah. Like the miners in Donbass. Okay. No more. I know you're very cute. This is the Milo Minute. Here today on the Milo Minute. Milo, what do you have to say about the world's goings-on? Yes, I know. Yes, I know. That has been your Milo Minute. Which quote are you talking about? The strong men make good times, good times make weak men, right? Weak men make bad times strong, like the cycle, right? The cycle. My town has a worker-owned coffee shop, and they are amazing. Their logo is an approximation of the hammer and sickle with the mug and espresso handle. That's hilarious. I love that. I love that, man. I need to get involved in something like that myself. I do want to work in like a co-op sort of situation, honestly. Like that to me would be... I should take a look, see if Mondragon has any companies that I can get involved in here. Right? Imagine if Justin Trudeau established some of these. Yeah, right. Good luck. Like, I think one of the most pernicious bullshit things that gets said about Justin Trudeau is that he's a communist. Like, I can't imagine a more delusional position. Ugh. Milo, buddy, I'm literally turning the light on. See what I did? I stood up and I sat back down. No need to lose your mind. Milo's like, John's standing up. That must mean food for me. Nope. When I'm feeling extra anti-ableist, I bring out this profile picture. In a way, a wheelchair looks similar to a hammer and sickle. Yeah, amazing. Amazing. It's nice to know that people are beginning to... Like, The New Yorker is a very serious publication. Like, it's not nothing. And something like the co-op system and the co-op idea, right? It has been talked about by people like... Richard Wolff. Richard Wolff is constantly bringing it forward. And I feel like the strength of talking about the co-op system is that it seems reasonable and it seems doable. I think that's the big thing. For people who think about communism as utopian or pie in the sky, it can't be done, like these sorts of things, I think that talking about the co-op system it brings the idea to the forefront in a way that seems reasonable and attainable, right? To me, it's perfectly attainable. You could transfer the systems that we have right now into cooperatives very easily. I think you could do it very easily without much difficulty. You wouldn't need to seize weapons and seize the means of production, right? That you could straight out say that we're going to create a method of transfer to transfer ownership away from the shareholders into the hands of the working class. And I've heard ideas like give the workers the right of first refusal So anytime shares come up for sale or companies come up for sale, the workers are the ones that are given the right of first refusal. And it would be as simple as a politician just guaranteeing a loan, right? Like you have a profitable organization, you want to transfer it to the workers. Well, transfer it to the workers through this process of a loan and just guarantee them the security of that loan. Politicians guarantee loans to corporations all the time. They could certainly do that for this. And I think that there are capitalists, and I'm seeing it more and more. I talked about it just yesterday. I'm seeing it more and more. There are people who were pro-capitalist and arguing on the side of capitalism because they actually genuinely believed that capitalism was providing the outcomes that they were seeing without theft and destruction, right? That they refused to understand because they're illiterate and because the entire system of economics in America is based on illiteracy. They disconnected the benefits that they were seeing around them and the type of society that they were seeing around them. They disconnected it from things like the labor movement, from things like the movement of communists and socialists in the society, from the civil rights movement. They disconnected it from that, and they connected it to the invisible hand of the free market moving around for the benefit of all, right? So instead of living in reality, you had a lot of people who were moving forward with a religious ideology. And instead of acknowledging the history of slavery and the current history of war, and how, yeah, if you steal resources from a country and send it into your own country, it's going to make your country look better, right? You're gonna have better living standards, right? If you enslave a populace in like Uganda to have them get cobalt for you, right? You can pretend as though capitalism's the greatest system in the world as long as you ignore the quality of life of the people you enslave, right? But now the system is degrading. And all of the violence and all of the systems of oppression that we have used across the rest of the world and in our own history are beginning to manifest in the society. And so you're starting to see lots and lots of people who were simply pro-capitalist because, yeah, obviously, like capitalism is making us rich and we're making all this wealth. Well, now it's not doing that, and it's doing another thing. And you're starting to see not just people manifest in the political system who people disagree with, but people who are repugnant, people who are obvious frauds and obvious shysters, and obviously there to do damage, right? Who are not trying to help, who are not trying to build a stronger America, who are literally just con men, and it's obvious that that's what they are. And I think that there are a lot of people who consider themselves intelligent academic types who are being confronted with these overt, obvious failures of capitalism and are attempting to salvage it or attempting to find a way to understand it. And I think that their curiosity and their understanding is genuine. And I hope that they actually pick up Marx and they actually read the Communist Manifesto and they actually come to understand something a little bit better about the way their system actually operates, right? Because I read an article like this, but it's in the headline, right? Or the whatever that's called, the secondary headline, right? It's in Spain, an industrial-sized conglomerate owned by its workers suggests an alternative future for capitalism, right? The idea being that it's still capitalism. It's just a different configuration of capitalism. Not understanding, of course, that like something like the co-op system would dismantle capitalism. It would be not really that possible to have capitalists in a society where everything is owned by workers, right? Yeah, and if you drain the brains of the world, you're going to have the best damn universities in the world, yeah? Like, but what's really biting America in the butt is its commitment to this religious ideology, right? That's what's really, really going to bite the West in the ass, is that it's committed to this religious ideology. And this religious ideology, they are making decisions. So just take a look at what's happening in the UK. Like, really just take a look at what's happening in the UK, right? That, yeah, I think that there is a certain degree of just like, we can make money now, so let's just make money now. But I genuinely do think that there are people who are committed to this religious ideology so much that they are willing to destroy everything in order to commit to it, right? Like, religious ideologues can be completely self-destructive. They will go to their own grave. Like, I listen to like the Crusades and the history of the Crusades, and what kicks off the Crusades and the spirit of the Crusades is like literally priests standing up and saying things like, for the glory of God, we should go into the heathen Middle East and spread the good word of Christ. And there are thousands of people who are like, we must spread the good word of Jesus Christ and seek redemption through the sword. Like, they're literally saying this. And like, we have their journals where they're literally writing like, I've been a soldier my life, and in my time I've done grisly things, and now the church is saying that to find redemption in the eyes of our Lord, I should go and cleanse the Muslim hordes from the city of the holy city of Jerusalem. And so I shall, to redeem my soul eternally for the Godfather. Like, it's like straight up, like, they think that way. It's a religious ideology that inspires them to war. And we're the financiers and the economists who rule us today are no different, right? They're of the same mind, that they have a religious ideology, and the religious ideology says if you have a lot of money, you are intrinsically good, and you will intrinsically do good things, and everything you do is intrinsically good, and so you should. All we have to do is give rich people who are intrinsically good by the definition of the religious ideology more wealth, and then those good people will do good. It's crazy. Like, it's insane. It's as repugnant a religious view as any religious view. Like, the more people we throw into the volcano, the happier the gods will be. It's on that same level. And future generations, should they exist, will view it that way. They will look back on this period of time the same way that we look back on like the Aztecs throwing people into volcanoes, and the Crusades, people just going off to war for the glory of God, right? It's yeah. The Crusades were monumental feats of atrocities, especially the first and fourth. The fourth one killed fellow Christians. I mean, I would say that the ongoing crusade that's happening right now in the Middle East is pretty brutal, right? Like, the people of the Middle East consider Bush's invasion of Iraq a crusade, primarily because he called it one, right? Like, George W. Bush sat in front of the nation and said he was launching a crusade. And we here in the West, which is largely secular, right? Not exclusively, but largely secular, kind of rolled our eyes about it and put our hands in our head, right? People of the Middle East didn't. They went, oh, it's another crusade. And they knew exactly what was happening as it was happening, right? It's a religious crusade coming from religious ideologues, once again destroying and spreading their malice throughout the planet. Ooh, what a day I'm having. What a day I'm having. Will Canada's NDP fight right-wing pro-worker populism with actual class war? Short story, no, but let's see what David Moskrop has to say about it. Pierre Poilievre, The new leader of the Conservative Party of Canada presents himself as a friend of the working class. Some New Democrats claim they'll fight Poilievre's rhetoric with class war, but is the party up for it? Pierre Poilievre is the new leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. For months, he has been working to own the Labour discourse, popping into left territory aesthetically, not substantively, to argue for working class affordability. The message may be money in your pocket populism at a time when few can afford life's essentials. But the policy behind the messaging is retrenchment, austerity, and power to capital. To the extent that Poilievre has a platform, it is centered on cutting taxes, limiting state spending, and opening market space for big capital, particularly in resource extraction. Any benefits to workers would be incidental, accidental, or temporary. Fighting on home turf. The left must be wary of Poilievre's cynical venture into what has traditionally been, and still ought to be, our ambit. He is playing a game. His campaign has been a strategic foray into pro-worker cosplay that will do no good for the folks he purports to care about. Of course, not everyone is fooled by his act. Shortly after Poilievre took the Conservative leadership with 68% on the first ballot, the Canadian Union of Public Employees released a statement from National President Mark Hancock. It did not mince words. It's too bad that, unlike Andrew Scheer, Pierre Poilievre does not hold American citizenship, because he would be right at home as governor of a state like Alabama, the statement opened. The union head pointed out Poilievre's support for the convoy that occupied Ottawa last year and the extremists who made it their home. Getting to the core of Poilievre's play, the statement points out Poilievre simply isn't a friend of the working class, but rather a career politician who has been collecting a six-figure salary on the public's dime since he was 24. And what has he been up to in office? Well, he spent every minute of his time in office fighting against fair wages, good pensions, and a better life for working people. Yes, indeed, that is the analysis and tone the left needs in order to fight back against Poilievre's incursion into our territory. Poilievre's attempt to speak for the working class needs to be mercilessly criticized and called out for the sham that it is. A counter-conservative movement must be broad. It should be led by a party with the guts to own class politics too. The New Democratic Party claims to be prepared to batten down the hatches and neutralize Poilievre's rhetoric, as Reza Patel reports for the Toronto Star. The party is not going to wage a culture war against Poilievre. Instead, it will be a class war. Milo, that's not for you, dude. That's garbage. That's not for you. That's not for little pugs. He's just getting into the garbage is what he's doing. Milo really rearing his head this time around. Wouldn't that be nice? If past is prologue, however, that's not how this story is going to go. The NDP needs to step up to the plate already. Does the NDP have it in them this time? For years, the party has been timorous and ineffective. In 2015, after serving as official opposition and continuing a years-long centrist pivot, the party dropped back to third place in the House of Commons with 44 seats. That was still a good showing for them. By 2019, the NDP had jettisoned leader Thomas Mulcair, architect of the party's pragmatic rightward drift, and replaced him with Jagmeet Singh in an effort for a new left turn. If the turn materialized, it didn't translate into much. The party ended the election that year with 24 seats. In 2021, they increased their count to 25. In a minority parliament, the NDP had a chance to play an outsized role, extracting policy from the Liberals in their minority government. The party has managed to help set the agenda, at least ostensibly, with a summer deal that pushed dental care, housing, and prescription drug care, things the Liberals may have wanted to do anyway. They also claimed to have pushed the government to deliver more to folks as the pandemic emerged. But it's unclear whether they pushed the Liberals to do anything they weren't going to do anyway. The government's fall affordability package includes a modest dental plan stopgap slated for December. It's targeted at children under 12 living in households earning less than $90,000 a year, with tiered payments that parents must apply for through the Canada Revenue Agency. The program is meant to expand in 2023 to include seniors, people under 18, and people with disabilities. It is then meant to expand again in 2025 to include everyone making under $90,000 a year. The package also includes a one-off rental benefit for those making under $35,000 a year. Finally, it offers a doubling of the goods and services tax credit. It's doubtful the NDP will be able to own credit for these measures, limited, though helpful as they are. Hopefully this isn't the class war they're talking about, because it looks an awful lot like the usual liberal welfare state means-tested minimum. Either way, the Liberals are likely to get most of the credit for whatever gets done. I know, Milo. NDP, right? Leaving the NDP shouting from the rooftops, trying to remind people they helped. That isn't likely to win many votes. Nor is it likely to remake the state and market. And it's certainly not class war, as most people understand the term. A party both of and for the working class. The NDP's recent record, not without a few appreciable but insufficient successes, speaks to their incapacity to extract structural changes from the ruling Liberal government. It's this self-same incapacity that amounts and accounts for the inability to articulate industrial and economic strategy that encourages broad class alignment, consciousness, and mobilization. Now the party has Poilievre as a foil and a threat. The rise of Poilievre presents a chance for the party to own a class-based socialist politics of structural transformation. The NDP needs to seize this opportunity to contrast conservatives and liberal logic with a left understanding of worker and state capacity and the need to someone's spicy. I know. Now we're getting into communist theory, guys, and so Milo really needs to chime in, right? Nothing gets him more excited than communist theory, I tell you, right? And the need to remake the marketplace in the name of economic democracy. If the party tries to slap a coat of class war paint on top of a politics of hedging liberalish business as usual, they will fail. Poilievre will own more and more of disaffected Main Street, especially young folks. With the Liberals, will continue to dominate the center progressives. Milo, we are having very important conversations about Canadian politics. Okay? I know that I wasn't here all day. I was having a protest. I know, I was in a protest all day, my friend, and you were here, longingly pining for me, right? Lovingly and happily, just sitting here, waiting for the moment that I would arrive. And now you're here, hoping that we'll all come together and just play and have fun and be loved. And I know that's exactly what you want. I know. Here, I know. You know exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to pick you up. And he's just like, no. Hey, Von Schwinger, how you doing, bud? How you doing? If you're not getting notifications to my channel, you gotta hit the bell again. I know. They're just trying to get rid of me, dude. It's as simple as that. Just like a boil on the side of their lives. To achieve more than rhetorical boldness, the Liberals, the NDP rather, needs to regain the trust of everyday people, particularly young people, while growing a constituency of workers whose needs and interests the party once unabashedly advanced. That may give them a shot at not just successfully courting traditional left demographics, but mobilizing them too. A working class party ought to be a party both of and for the working class. These changes would ensure an improvement to the party's policies and priorities. To make any of it happen, however, the party must abandon half measures, internal divisions, and niche politics. It's either that or more of the status quo, or worse. Yeah, the ruling class hates our socialist beliefs. Yeah, solidarity forever. Like we are not, like the NDP are not going to do any of this. Like let's not mince words. Like it's nice that David wrote this, right? It's nice to tell the NDP the truth about what it is they should be focused on, but they're not going to do that. And why aren't they going to do that? Because they don't work for us, right? We know who they work for. They work for the owners, right? That they're controlled dissent, that they've been co-opted, right? People like Jagmeet Singh, right, are sort of well-meaning liberal types, but he's not going to risk his own position of status. He's not going to risk his own position of prestige, right? He's not going to risk alienating the billionaire class. He's not going to risk alienating those people. He's not going to stand up and start talking a big game about how we need to fight for workers' rights and all that kind of stuff. And the truth is, and here's the hard truth, guys. Here's the hard truth, okay? That nobody wants to talk about, right? Nobody wants to talk about. If he did, the white supremacists, which is most of us, right, will stand up and say he's gone nuts, right? That he's a man in a turban talking about bringing in, like, how he's literally one step away from people being like, he's going to bring in the Sharia law. That what he's talking about there, the workers owning the means of production, that's in the Quran, right? Like, that's literally what will happen. Like, and we know it. Like, let's not bullshit ourselves. Like, if Jagmeet Singh were to stand up and start actually talking the game of class warfare, right? It's immediately going to be scary terrorist man with the turban. Scared terrorist man with the turban wants to come in and bring in Sharia law, right? And yeah, like he's a Sikh, right? So he's not bringing Sharia law, but they don't give a they don't care. They don't give a fuck, right? Why can't the NDP gain any support? Maybe it has something to do with the fucking turban. Like, it's just the hard truth about where Canadians are, right? We are ready to vote in a person of color. I think that if a person of color were to be in charge, be the head of the Liberals or the NDP, I think people across the board would be ready for that. The turban is too much. It's too much. Right? It's certainly not, you're never going to get the vote from like the Christian right, ever. Like they're never going to see past that. And honestly, your moderate liberals, like they might be like, oh, isn't that, okay, he's got a turn, that's who he is, and you know what, I like that in him, that's great. They're never going to vote for him, right? They'll do their head tilting and their little like, oh, isn't that, oh, wow, that's interesting. He really believes in his cultural beliefs. And, oh, yeah, I can really respect that. I can really respect how he's got that turban on and he believes it. And that's real. There's something about that. I really like that Jagmeet Singh, He's got his religious beliefs and he's moving forward with it, and what a great young man he seems like. Are you going to vote for him? No. Like, it's a form of like head tilting fascism, is what it is. It's just like, it's like Canadians are going to apologize. Well, unlike the Germans who just sent people to gas chambers. We're going to send people to gas chambers and lots of people are going to be like, sorry, it's just a tough situation for everybody, This is going to really help everybody out, though, You gotta just, like, accept, I know it's a tough thing that we've got to, but we got to do it, We got to do it. This is just good for everybody else. This is just good. This will make our society bigger and stronger. So sorry. Like, that's how Canadians are going to do it. Like, that's what Canadian fascism is going to look like, right? Yeah, we're freaked out by a piece of cloth. Normal society. Yeah. We are normal Canadians. The right wants a leader that can compare their opposition to bacon and eggs somehow. Why are the cons obsessed with breakfast analogies? Because it's like all they understand. Right? Like, it's literally like all they understand. Like, you're dealing with people who don't read. Like, they don't even read fiction. Right? Like, they don't read. They don't read their Bible. They don't read literature. They certainly don't read political theory. Right? So they're illiterate. Right? And that, like, we all know that's true. Like, if you're illiterate, you can't be a conservative. It's just the truth. Like, if you're actually literate, it's just not possible to be conservative anymore, right? And so you've got illiterate people, and so how do you communicate to people who are illiterate, right? They don't have any heroes. They don't have any real characters. They don't have any tangible connection to any real culture or anything. They don't really have anything that you can kind of grab a hold to. So you got to grab a hold to just like normal daily life shit, right? You just got to sunshine sketches of a small town, right? Like, you've just got to grab hold of just like the everyday life and the everyday existence of the type of people conservatives are, right? Sort of wealthy, middle class, upper class people who love to go out to dinner, right? And, oh, wow, look at him. He's going out to dinner like I go out to dinner. He goes up to that diner like I go to the diner. He's having the breakfast and the eggs just like I'm having the breakfast and the eggs. Worked for Jerry Seinfeld, right? You listen to a Jerry Seinfeld has a new special on Netflix. And I really actually strongly suggest that everybody go and listen and watch this special, okay? And watch it once to enjoy it, because it's enjoyable. Jerry Seinfeld's an enjoyable storyteller and comedian. But watch it again and really revel and understand that he really is talking about just normal, rudimentary, basic experiences that most people likely have, right? Like, literally going to a buffet, right? He spends literally the first 15 minutes of his whole thing talking about the process of people getting to the show, right? And that's essentially what Poilievre is doing. That he's reaching out to his constituents and his people in the most basic way he can, which is to talk to them about the basic, like going to the post office, right? The process of going to the post office. Like, it's a Seinfeldian way of interacting with the world, and it works. Like, Jerry Seinfeld is literally a multi-millionaire, considered one of the greatest comedians of our era. Seinfeld is one of the top level shows on television through the 90s. Right? And what was it? Oh, you know, when I get on the airplane, I also get on airplanes occasionally. This Seinfeld, he's right. He's so clever. It's just like real life. That's what they're doing. Like, this is what they're doing. They're just presenting themselves like, and Poilievre is doing a really good job of it. And Moskrop has completely hit the nail on the head. That we need to respond to this. And we need to respond to this in a way that is not like this kind of like affable, like, man, he's just like bullshit. Like, he is cynically and hyper intelligently It is extremely intelligent what he is doing. The most intelligent work of politician and presentation that we have seen since Trudeau's first election campaign. What we are seeing from Poilievre is brilliant. And if we don't accept that, then he's going to win. Very straightforwardly. Appealing to Canadians on the most basic possible levels, right? When he puts out a video where he walks around the home he grew up, saying, here's the sidewalk that me and my dad used to play baseball with, right? Or on, or whatever, right? I remember growing up on this street corner. I felt safe every single day, right? Like, this shit works. It's effective, and it is working. It is working. Pierre Poilievre is polling 7 points ahead of the Liberals right now. The Conservatives are polling well ahead of the Liberals right now. Like, it's working. And if we don't respond sharply by pointing out to people that it's a fucking con, like, it's a grift, and if we can't convince people that it is a cynical ploy to gain power and then sell the country out to corporate power structures like you're seeing in the UK, then we're just going to experience it. That's it. That's it. Like, it's not foolishness. It's not a flight of fancy. It is a brilliant marketing strategy that is 100% working. Just watch Jerry Seinfeld. George Burns. I miss George Burns. My favorite George Burns was the movie, Oh God, where George Burns played God. I always thought that he was the best God. Yeah, Seinfeld rules the 90s, yeah. Seems like he studied Eisenhower. Are you talking about Pierre Poilievre or are you talking about Seinfeld? Jerry Seinfeld, turns out that he is absolutely in love with Eisenhower. Hey, comrade, do you think this is a communitarian movement or a serfdom? I don't think I understand the nature of the question, mate. Like, do I think what is a communitarian movement or serfdom? Like, this channel? Like, what are you talking about? What is this in that statement? Oh, Poilievre? I think Poilievre is a establishment man who understands that the way to attain power is to lie. And unlike Scheer or O'Toole, he understands that the reason why conservatives can't gain power is because of conservatism itself. He understands that to get people to vote for him, he needs to appeal to their grievances. And the appeal that he is using it's the classic fascist move. Co-opt socialist and communist rhetoric in order to deceive people into believing that you are on their side and then betray them. Right? So it's communitarian. I don't know what that even is. Like, what is that? Like, the goal is serfdom. Like, the goal is to erect an oligarchy, and not erect, now it's just service. Right? The goal is to service an oligarchy. But that's all. It's yeah, nice analysis, John. Thank you, Matthias, for you. I do these things for you. It is depressing to see people perpetually fall for these cynical ploys. It is a bit depressing, but I get to a place where it's understandable, right? It's how long can you keep convincing people they're falling for these grifts over and over? It's because people genuinely want to believe that the system can respond. That's the real crux of it, right? They don't want to accept that it's all fake, right? They don't want to accept that, because that takes a bit of a leap, right? Like, it does take like a bit of a jump. It takes a bit of a step to accept that it's a show. It takes like, people want to believe that if I vote for that guy, my life will get better. If I vote for this person, my life will get better. Clearly, what the politics that are happening here and the negotiations that are happening here will manifest somehow in a positive way into our lives, right? And perhaps it's the case that it used to, right? And you could see examples of that. I mean, people would point at the NDP and Tommy Douglas and the passage of the healthcare system. That all happened legislatively, right? That all happened through the political system, through the power of voting and all that kind of stuff, right? And there's no, there is a certain degree of grassroots organizing that needs to happen, and so on and so forth, but it does happen through the electoral system, right? People don't want to accept that that's over, right? They just so they're holding out hope. They're holding out hope that the system can respond, and they just don't want to believe. And I know why. Like, I know why. I know why people don't want to believe that the system has become unrepairable, that it is bought. I know why. Because it means that if you follow that line of reason and that line of thought, and you actually want to do something, and you actually want to be involved, and you actually want to have an impact on what happens in your society, and you actually want to improve your society, that means that you're at war. I get it. I get why people don't want to do it. I get why people don't want to accept it. I get why people are constantly like, oh, I don't know, this Polyev, though, he's sounding pretty good. Maybe things will get better if I get the Polyev, because the alternative is war. And lots of people don't want to do it. The alternative is to gather en masse and take to the streets and stare the police and the security forces in the face, and to get beat up with batons, and to throw yourself into the wheels of capital, and to sabotage, and to undercut, and to accept that the society is betraying itself, and to destroy itself, that what you are looking at is not a negotiation, it is an oppression. I understand. I understand why people don't want to accept it. And even if they do, in one moment, even if you have a conversation with them and they accept it in that moment, the show is very enticing. They're very good at what they do. And they're very good at presenting a show that looks like believable politics. And they can lure you back in, and they can entrance you with a swan song, with a siren song to draw you in, with beautiful promises of a great and longing future. They can tempt you. They can stroke your ego. They can tell you that you're actually a hero, and you're on a hero's journey, and that you have to slay the enemies that are before you in order to seize your rightful place. They can inflate your ego. They can offer you gifts, offer you small little promises, small little whispers, and maybe occasionally they'll deliver the little tiny parcels at your door. Occasionally. And it can be very effective. And the core heart of it really is that the path of truth and the path of accepting what the truth of the society actually is much harder. It's much easier for people to just go, no, the electoral system still has to produce something valid. It still has to come out with something that is going to somehow improve the quality of our lives and is somehow going to actually respond rationally to the crises that are around us. And eventually there'll come a point where that illusion can no longer be maintained. Because the next question that's on your mind, Matthias, I know, is, well, how do we convince people? And the answer to that is we don't. Nothing is going to convince people that capitalism and the electoral system is a failure more than the system of capital itself. That the conversations that we are having today are the seeds that will grow into the revolution of tomorrow. And that the conversations that we are having now with people, that they may brush off, they may go, oh, okay, maybe you're onto something, but I'm still going to do this. Well, after they experience the collapses, after they experience the declines, after they experience the betrayals, and after it becomes obvious that the system has failed, they will remember the conversations that they had with you. They will remember. And they will turn to look at you and they will see that you are further down the path than they are. That your tree has grown larger than theirs. And they'll come and they'll put their hand on you. And you will guide them towards the communist revolution. I've experienced something like this in my own life. That for a long time, I was walking around saying to people, like, hey, we're experiencing the rise of Nazism. Like, we're experiencing the rise of fascism. This is how Nazism came forward into the society. And people dismissed me, disparaged me, isolated me, called me a kook, called me a loser. So, some people even just straight up said, like, yeah, okay, enough. Like, I don't want to hear about it anymore. Right? Well, and then Donald Trump got elected. And all of those people, to an individual, have come to me since and have said, so, what do you think about Donald Trump? And they know exactly what I'm going to say. And they know that I'm completely right. The fact that your friends aren't calling you a loser, about this means that we're way farther along. And once the collapses begin to occur, and once they become more and more virulent and powerful, those people will see the light of day. The illusion will shatter. Meanwhile, my chat's having a conversation about marijuana. Fantastic. Yeah, the political system is like WWE, right? It's just an entertainment system. Like, it's just there to convince you that there's politics going on when there isn't. I actually kind of wish that that they would just finally, like, take the plunge and, like, I would love to see, like, a fight between Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau. right? They should absolutely do it. Like I think that people would really love it. They would go crazy for it. Right? We should hash it out in the squared circle, brother. We're gonna have Justin Trudeau come out. He's gonna fight against Pierre Poilievre, and they're gonna hash it out in the squared circle. We're gonna get this done right, like men. Ugh. Okay, let's do it. Radio Halifax says he needs to go. He's in for a 4. I know Conton said I think it was a 7. We got 8 people watching right at the moment. Tell your friends I'm here, guys. Tell everybody I exist. Hit the like button. Mr. Moon. Good to see you, Mr. Moon. Here we go. Today's number. Got a lot of 4s. Got a lot of 4s. That's 3 4s. You know what? I'm in. Let's go. I'm in for a 4. Today's a day. Let's go with the 4. Everybody's a 4. Even you, Conton. I don't give a shit. Conton, if you're listening to this from the future, your number's not a 7, it's a 4. Come on, there's a bunch of you. Where's all the 4s?
Today's number is
4. Lame. Lame. Boo. Boo. Lame. Well, Conton got the win, though. Let's give it to him. If I go all the way back here, I'm sure that he said this. 7, but yeah, he did right away. He's like 7. Look at that. From the past, like from the long shot, from downtown, swish on a 7. And Mocked, if you're listening to this from the future, you're a winner too, buddy. Don't think I forgot about you, buddy. You're a fucking winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. It's so great that David Lynch does this. Like, are you kidding me? Like, why does he do this? What a fucking nut. Like, what a great guy. Like, what a fucking crazy person. Like, it's so fucking beautiful. So fucking beautiful. Yeah. Matthias, I agree. I don't see much of a point in convincing anyone. I think we're already on a course for capitalism to eat itself. Yeah. And I really do think, like, that spirit, like, the populace kind of knows it. I was saying earlier, like, people who are organizing are finding it difficult to get people to come out. And the question really is, like, why? Right? Like, why? Why are we hanging, like, why can't we get more people out? And I think it really is that people are convinced that the system's going to eat itself, and there's nothing we can do about it. And so I think a lot of people are looking at it as if it's wasted energy, right? And I don't know, like, that's tough to push back against. That's tough to, like, if you know the building's coming down, why scrabble around trying to put it back up? It's coming down. Just stand back and watch. Just stand back and watch. So, I mean, I'm going to keep going out. For God's sakes, average GTA rents jump 21% over a year ending in August. Like 21%. Are you kidding me? Did wages go up 21%? No? Oh. Yes, Matthias, that will happen, but we're going to go through this phony revolutionary fascist crap. Here's the thing, though. Like, it pays to remember that figures like Hitler, right, were thought of as buffoonish, right? Like, fascists are usually perceived as buffoons in their society. People usually think that they're losers, right? The majority of the populace, the culture itself, looks at these figures as oddball losers and as buffoons. And that doesn't prevent them from doing a whole shit ton of damage. I think things like the let it rot movement will become much more commonplace. Yeah, this generation is especially screwed. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the quiet quitting movement. Yeah, 7-7 say you did it, Compton. Ding 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 ding. You did it. It's all you. You're the winner. You're the wiener. Well, you mean everybody picking 4 didn't result in a win? Fuck me. Yeah, fuck me. I think the quiet quitting movement is scaring the shit out of these guys. Like, because the quiet quitting movement, in my view, is like one step. It's just the step right before, why do we even need these parasites? Right? Like, why do we even need these parasites? Like, they don't do anything. They don't provide any value. They can't prevent us from doing this, from, like, working to rule, right? Like, they can't do it. Eraserhead. I haven't actually seen Eraserhead yet. I know. I'm shameful. I've never actually seen Eraserhead. I think when I was presented with Eraserhead when I was younger, I was just like, this looks stupid. And now I'm, like, getting older, and I'm, like, kind of ready more for Eraserhead. So I feel like I gotta just, like, do it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, literally, this is everything I know about Eraserhead. Right here. This is literally everything I know about it. I know that David Lynch did it. I know, and I'm like a film minor. So it's like shameful. It's shameful that I have not actually watched Eraserhead. So I think I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna put this over here. I'm gonna get me Eraserhead. I'm gonna watch Eraserhead. It's gonna happen. Because the more and more I listen to David Lynch, the more and more I really appreciate him. I really appreciate him. And especially, like, not just, he talks about transcendental meditation a lot, and the way he talks about it is very, very cool and very interesting. But I love it when he talks about his failures. And his failure in Dune. Dune it ended up being considered a failure. Although if you go back and watch it, it's not as bad as it was received, I think. And I just love how open he is about it, how willing he is to discuss it as a failure, you know? What's my favorite Lynch movie? I don't think... I'm more familiar with Lynch because of his television. And Twin Peaks to me has definitely... Twin Peaks is definitely responsible for shifting my demands for what I expect from film and television. That what I love about Twin Peaks is that he presents a world of mundanity, a world that is mundane and normal, and then very steadily he takes you down this path, planting little seeds of supernatural elements until eventually you are in a supernatural world where magic is real. And the way that he does it is so brilliant and terrifying and wonderful. And then Twin Peaks has this really interesting thing that happened to it, because it had 2 seasons and then it got canceled because studio executives are dumb. And then 20 years passed, And then they get the crew, they get everybody back together and they do another season 20 years later. And David Lynch delivers something that is obscure, inscrutable, that I think I'm going to have to rewatch again in order to try to understand it a bit better. Like, I still chew that through my head. But he made very, what I would consider, bold decisions. Like at the... we're going to get into spoiler alerts here, so if you really don't want to be spoiled about what happens in Twin Peaks, like, too bad. At the end of the second season, Dale, Dale Cooper, the CIA agent, he goes into this alternative realm, into this place where a demon came out of. So the inference is that he's going into something like hell, right? And then after this passage of 20 years, Dale comes out of it and comes back to Earth, the reality plane. But instead of just having like Dale Cooper come out and then like rush back to the town he came from and be like, oh, this is what's going on and like all this kind of stuff, David Lynch decides that Dale Cooper has been traumatized and is almost in a catatonic state. And so Dale Cooper, like the hero of the first two seasons, essentially spends the majority of his time in this catatonic state, interacting with the world around him in a way that can only be described as mystical and magical. That he sees the world differently than everyone else and sees the magic that exists within it and does things that are inscrutable and odd because of that. But it's all done in this surrounded by this the mundane aspects of life or the small scale, like mom and pop shop level of like love affairs and love triangles and someone just trying to have a business and intrigue and betrayal on these sort of small town kind of levels of if I can just undercut my competitor, I can do better over here, and all of it kind of tied together with this underpinning of literal magic. And it's completely ruined a lot of television for me. And I think about, I watched, here's a dark confession. I watched Pretty Little Liars. I like to blame it on my sister, but the truth is that I actually really loved the show. And they did this. Where it was 4 young women living their normal kind of lives, right? And one of their friends had gone missing. And as they all sort of investigate this and pursue the little threads of her disappearance, because they're all curious about this, the seeds of it being she disappears because of magic in this kind of Twin Peaksian sort of way begin to materialize, and they begin to plant those seeds. But then they immediately betray the I shouldn't say immediately, but by the end of season 1, it became really obvious that they weren't going to go that way. They weren't going to make the magic real, and they weren't going to have like an underpinning of magic in the world, right? And I felt betrayed by it, because it's, why not? Like, why not? Seems to me like you planted the seeds, right? You should pay it off. And I blame David Lynch for that. Like, I want to watch something that has magic in it. And not like Marvel magic. Not like, I can do special effects. You know? I want to see art that creates the world as it is in its sort of mundane kind of way, the sort of mom and pop everyday reality kind of stuff, while dipping in to the intrinsic depth of our reality and the mystical, magical aspect of what we're experiencing, right? We are experiencing something magical. It is a magical thing that is happening to us. Life itself, the very existence of our, like the very fact that we can perceive existence itself. There's something mystical about all of this, and magical, and it's so worth our exploration. And we've created this enormous media system and this enormous technology to project dreams that a person can take the thoughts they have, and by crafting a series of images, sound, and music, they can project a dream in front of you and have you experience the dream that they created, so that you can have a deeper understanding of what's going on in the world around you. And we use it for fucking Marvel movies. The new season of Twin Peaks was unusual. I loved it. I did. I loved it. I loved the newest season of Twin Peaks. If you're a fan of Twin Peaks and you haven't seen the newest season, you gotta do yourself the favor. It's real strange. Yeah, that's reason enough to watch it, if you ask me. It's just different than anything else. It's just like there's nothing else like it. You know? I think that if you're sitting there complaining about how samey everything has gotten, and everything has gotten samey, eh? Like everything's basically the same, right? Like I just don't like watching the newest Disney thing or the newest Marvel thing or the newest Star Wars thing or the newest, because it's literally the same. Like literally the same. And you know what I will pitch? You know what I will admit? I've been loving the newest season of Rick and Morty. Yeah, I've been loving the newest season of Rick and Morty. If you're not a Rick and Morty fan, or if you've never watched Rick and Morty, I think Rick and Morty is like top tier television right now. Like really top tier. That even though the position of the show is bleak and nihilistic, right? It's not hopeful in its worldview. It is very like Rick himself is for sure a nihilist. Like he's just absolutely constantly in this state of life is meaningless. And all the characters say this. It happens all the time. Everybody says life is meaningless constantly. It's a constant refrain that occurs throughout the show. But at least they're making a statement, right? At least they're saying something about life, right? Like that's got to be my biggest complaint about Disney as a studio and a lot of this dreck that we're all being inflicted with and trying to be convinced that it has something to do with entertainment or it's interesting or anything. Is that it's meaning, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything about life at all, right? Like even someone like Jerry Seinfeld, who I was talking about before, even though he's talking about very mundane things, he's still talking about life, right? He's trying to make a statement about like, this is life. This is what we're doing, right? And this is what we're here to do, right? And something like Sandman, the reason why Sandman was so interesting and the reason why I loved Sandman and recommend it is because it was taking all of this technology we have to like Marvelize things and like special effects and all this and telling a story that was trying to say something about the state of humanity. What are humans? How do we interact with the world? What are dreams? How are we interacting with the world through dreams? How are we interacting with things? And so Sandman was attempting to actually say something about the world and say something about humanity, right? And so when you're in an environment where no one is willing to say anything about humanity, well, even the nihilists, which is Rick and Morty, play. And what is it to live in a world if you think that everything is meaningless? What are you pursuing? What are your goals? What kind of thing matters to you if nothing matters? You know? And it's worth contemplation, and it's worth introspection, and some of the most creative storytelling and creative situations that I have ever seen on any show ever has come out of Rick and Morty. You got to get through the first 6 episodes. Rick is a real shithead. And they make him really bad in the first 6 episodes. Like, he's really, really... You don't like him. You don't like him. Like, the thing that kind of carries you through is the internal recognition that there is a part of you that is Rick, right? And there is a part of you that is Morty, right? Like, and that's what kind of carries the day for me. Is that you're disgusted by Rick, but you can see Rick in yourself. Oh, I typed in ladder like ladder. That's so funny. Oh, bro, I haven't seen this film since 1990. That's what it is. That's just is as it is. Yeah, I definitely watched this film when I was like 10. That's it. Like, that's it. That's my whole opinion of Jacob's Ladder. My entire opinion of Jacob's Ladder is that I was 10 when I watched it, and I don't remember it. There you go. Information. Not the helpful thing you were hoping for, Von Schwingener. I know it. Yep. So I wanted to show this to you guys because, like, the rich are detached. Okay? Like, they are detached from reality. And we've just got to start admitting it. And saying again and again and again that the richer you are, the more detached from reality you are. Here is CNBC, right? One of the news networks that exists in America, one of the propaganda outlets. The budget breakdown of a 25-year-old who makes $100,000 a year and is excellent with money. Okay? Okay? So let's just sidestep the asinine idea that a 25-year-old with $100,000 is common, right? Which is the inference. It's far more common that a 25-year-old will not have $100,000, right? Far more common. But let's just sidestep that and buy into the premise, right? The budget breakdown of a 25-year-old who makes $100,000 a year and is excellent with money. So typical monthly spending, $2,775. So far, so good, right? You took $100,000, you divided it by 12, you did it. Dining out, $250. Fantastic, okay? This guy's dining out, right? But when you actually look at the chart, wait a minute. Oh, there's groceries. So groceries, $400. Dining out, $250. Right? $400? I think that's reasonable. Right? Not unreasonable. Right? Dining out, $250? Sure. The guy's making $100,000 a year. Fantastic. Of course, you got to put in health insurance because you got to pay for health insurance. Utilities, $195. Yeah, okay. Transportation, $130. Okay. Like, where are you getting your insurance from, buddy? You've seen the price of gas, right? Okay. Cell phone, $40. Okay. Okay. House cleaner, $30. Aha. Aha. This is where I get to outright say, like, this is starting to explain something to me. This is the value that they put on labor. $30 for a monthly house cleaner. Internet. $20. Like, the lowest internet I have ever seen is like $40. Like, I've never seen it lower than 40. And then my absolute favorite, rent, $825. $825 for rent. I would love to be spending $825 on rent. I would be really over the moon if my rent was $825. You know? I would actually have, like, spending money. I would actually have some pocket change. I would actually be able to meaningfully contribute to my community outside of the parasite class if my rent was $825. What's the average rent in Toronto? $2,095. $2,095 is the average cost of rent. According to MSNBC, I'd like to point out that that is actually almost all of this man making $100,000 a year. That's almost all of his money. Right? Making $100,000 a year, the average rent is $2,095. That's almost all of his typical monthly spending. Right? The people who rule us are detached. They are detached from reality. They are living in a dream world. I can tell that you, Vaughn, yeah, internet is $20, Mr. Moon, catching up. And then, of course, they say donations $615 because they got to make sure that you understand that rich people are good, right? Rich people are good people, right? He's donating $615 a month. What a good person. Yeah, right. I'm sure that every 25-year-old who's making $100,000 is donating $615 a month. Like, fuck off. I can tell, Vaughn, you're super high right now, eh? You're like talking about Perry the Platypus and shit. Perry the Platypus. I never got into Perry the Platypus. I was a little too old. It's like Pokemon for me. Like I definitely missed the Pokemon train. Right? I definitely missed the Pokemon train. Yeah, I can't feed myself on $400 a month. Like, I'm lucky this way because I actually get food. Part of the deal at my cafe is that I get food there. And so I that has really taken down my food budget a lot. But like, yeah, like what are you talking about? Like, and forget about dining out, $250. Like, what are you talking about? Like, all of our money is going to rent. All of our money is going to rent. John watched the Harley Quinn animated series. Yeah. Season 3, Joker becomes a socialist mayor. Yeah, Batman literally is the detached billionaire. Yeah. I'm glad to see that narrative is happening. I'm a touch worried that they're doing it to try to smear socialism, like it's trying to be a socialist smear. But I don't know that I care. And I've seen enough of this Harley Quinn animated series to be like, that it looks good. Like it looks like it's being very tongue in cheek. Oh, do they buy clothing? Yeah, Major, good for you, bud. No. He's a naked kid. Like he doesn't. What? You don't need clothing. What are you talking about? He's a nudist. Oh, also, while we're talking about media, Arcane is really good. Like, it's just really good. Like, every character is super strong, highly motivated. The storytelling is Shakespearean in its scale and its execution. It's brilliantly executed. Like, it's and fulfilling. It's a very fulfilling experience. Like, I'm really looking forward to season 2. I'm really looking forward to season 2. I'm on $250 a month EBT card for food, plus I grow stuff. Good for you, Vaughn. Grow the shit out of that stuff. Gardening is a revolutionary act. Revolt. Grow that shit. Grow that shit. Grow that shit. Yeah, they sure love publishing the same drop the avocado toast narrative over and over again. Yeah, and it's embarrassing. Like, that's all it is for me. Like, it's just revealing how detached they are. Like it's very much like how on Arrested Development, the mother had probably one of the greatest lines ever written. How much could a banana cost? $10? Just that's masterful. That's masterful. The main villain guy died too soon? Well, spoiler alert, first of all, Ligand Z. How dare you, sir? Arcane is awesome. Arcane's very good. I literally, like, rewatched it again because I was like, is this actually as good as I thought it was? And it is. It's just every shot is a painting. Every character is taken very seriously. Everybody's motivations are very believable and rooted in reality. The psychosis that Jinx is experiencing seems legitimate. It makes like the madness of Daenerys Targaryen, what happened in Game of Thrones, look like baby's first draft. And it also seems like very legitimately driven. Like, she's obviously experiencing PTSD from an extraordinary traumatic event. Like, and it is an extraordinary traumatic event. Like, there's no other way to describe it. And the villains, like the people who you could unabashedly say are villainous, they are also sympathetic and motivated, and they are complex people whose objectives are not simply grabbing for power's sake, but rather they have ambitions that go beyond just the pettiness of being a ruler. Like, that the villain really does see himself as building a nation, and that the Undercity and the Overcity are detached from one another. That the wealth and prestige of the council-ruled upper-class city really do not understand what is happening in the Undercity. And so you end up with this beautiful relationship that comes out from Caitlyn going to the Undercity in pursuit of a piece of technology. And it's everything is so delicately woven together. There's so many different threads, and they're all very intertwined with one another. And it all culminates in something that is brilliantly artistic. Brilliantly artistic. I'm in a public housing. Rent is $230 a month. Oh man, $230. Oh, I'd love to be spending $230 a month. But I assume public housing, so like you're probably like sharing amenities and things like that. Full disabled retired welder. When I raised my nephew, we watched Phineas and Ferb constantly. I'm 46, he's 18 now. I'm not that high. Dude, you're talking about Phineas and Ferb. And how cute Harley Quinn is. You're so fucking blitzed, dude. I could fucking tell. Don't bullshit me, bud. Don't bullshit me. Edge Runners. I didn't realize that Edge Runners was straight up a tie-in from Cyberpunk. I just thought that it was like a cyber show. I didn't realize that it was actually the same people. And I should, you're right. I absolutely should. And apparently, Edge Runners has really blown up Cyberpunk again, the video game Cyberpunk. And so I really like that. I like that there's this tie-in to a video game franchise that I actually rather liked. I liked Cyberpunk, you know, for all the critiques that everybody gave it. I liked it. I had a good time. I had a good experience. But now, like, if they're doing updates and they're putting in new content and like trying to make things a lot smoother, I feel like, yeah, I should have a revisit. You know, I should go back. I feel like I'm gonna mod it first, though. I'm one of those guys. I'm gonna mod it. Oh man, I definitely feel myself coming down from the day, guys. I definitely feel myself coming down from the day. So happy you guys are here to experience this with me. What a day today was. What a day today was, man. Oof. It's like simultaneously beautiful and horrifying, you know? Simultaneously, like you see the best of humanity and the worst of humanity all at the same time. You know? It's tough to it's I don't know, it's fucking tough to be alive. Yeah, it's tough to be alive sometimes. Yeah, I've run out of stuff to share. I don't have I'm gonna reach into the Discord. Oddity, what are you putting on here, dude? What are you trying to tell us? You got like, let's talk about incels? Bro, fucking incels. What a bunch of fucking total goddamn losers. Strem is up. Thanks, Oddity. I appreciate it, bud. Thanks for letting me know. I need all the help I can get. Dude, incels, I used to actually be, like when I first heard about incels, when I first heard about them, I was actually kind of sympathetic to them. Because I was like, oh, young men who are having trouble getting a hold of young women and they're like frustrated by it and their testosterone is taking over and they're blowing up. And then I actually read some of the shit that these guys were writing and I was like, oh, fuck these guys. Like, fuck these guys. If you're calling yourself an incel, right, you're a fucking loser. Like, you're like a dangerous, you're just like you want to enslave women. Like, that's what you want. Like, you're a dangerous person. If you're calling yourself an incel, like, you're literally looking at, like, super villainy. Like, you're looking at people who, like, I'm surprised that some of these cartoons and some of these comics haven't, like, made a villain called the incel or something, right? Because, like, these people exist. Like, they're real. They view women as a subclass who should service them. Like, that's what they do. That's how they write. That's what they say. It's fucking brutal. And now, wanted for multiple attacks against Consumensa women and hate crimes over the last few months, has been arrested. Good. Fuck this guy. Like, fuck this guy. It's so fucking annoying. Ugh. Like, fucking, dude, like, and what kills me is, like, this guy's not a bad-looking dude, right? This guy's not a bad-looking dude, right? I grow ghost peppers, Carolina Reaper, and scorpion peppers. Vaughn, dude, are you trying to, like... Is there some sort of deep-seated anger of the world and you're trying to take your vengeance out on it through the power of ghost peppers? Like, ghost peppers, dude, are crazy. Like, that's the real shit right there. Like, that... You can absolutely destroy people. Right? You can destroy people with that kind of shit. Incel is a mindset. Ligand Z just starts turning into like a motivational speaker for incels. Incels is a mindset. The incel. I can't even pretend. I can't even fucking pretend. Please no. I feel like the last 20 minutes of this, guys, is going to be a faff. I feel like the chat is kind of faffy. I'm definitely feeling faffy. I'm definitely like on that end of it where I'm just like, oof. Like I feel kind of giddy almost. I feel like silly, you know? I feel like my brain is getting into silly mode. Ugh. I'm a semi-aquatic egg-laying mammal of action. Edgerunners is a wonderful slice of life working class blah blah show. Isn't Edgerunners like straight up? Isn't Edgerunners like cyberpunk as shit though? Like when I look up Edgerunners, like this is it, right? Like this does not look like fucking a wonderful slice of life working class blah blah show. Like it doesn't have that appearance. But are you saying that they have set it in like a cyberpunk world, but that it is actually just a slice of life sort of show, but set in that reality? Because that I think would be very clever and very bold, like very just like, yeah, this is what life is like living in this reality, right? Like that's how interesting. Because again, man, like it does not look like it looks very, very. What I like about the cyberpunk world and what it presents is that there is like its magic is technology, right? That the world that it creates is like intrinsically the merger of humans with technology, and does start to really present a world where like the human consciousness and human existence merges with technology in such a way that it becomes indistinguishable from a type of magic, and that people who are like hackers in such a world would be somewhat indistinguishable from wizards, that they would be capable of doing things that are beyond our current comprehension. I think it's a very cool idea, and I'm glad to see that cyberpunk and the idea of cyber, this style and this idea is beginning to gain more and more traction. And I don't know how I feel about it. This is something that I think about all the time. Like I don't know how I feel about the merger of humanity and technology, right? Because on the one hand, we're already doing it, right? Like we've got these phones, right? Like we've got these phones. There's already kind of a merger of technology with humanity, right? We're already doing it. It's just not, this isn't implanted, you know? Like this phone isn't like implanted inside of me. I could always just throw this away, right? Like I could put it aside and forget about it and move on with my life. But it's impossible to deny that these phones have definitely altered our reality, right? Like we definitely live in an altered form of reality now. That even like 20, 30 years ago, reality was different than it is now, right? And we exist. Like if you don't actually have one of these phones, if you don't actually have this kind of technology, you are invisible. You become invisible, right? You cease to exist, really. And there are people who are talking about this rise of technology and the rise of these phones in ways that are very interesting. I think if you seek out Bo Burnham's stuff, where he talks not as a comedian but just as a commentator on phones and what social media is doing to us and how it's affecting us, he has some very prescient and interesting things to say, where like we're presenting ourselves to the world. Like, this is what this does. It allows us to present a version of ourselves into the world and project ourselves onto the screen to be viewed. But what we are presenting is usually the most false version of ourselves, right? That we're not really presenting. Like, Instagram is all about this. It's all about creating an image, right? And so you're putting something fake and false into the world, and people are looking at that and believing that that's what you are and how you are. And so we're creating like a layer of falsity. And I go so far to say that because of the rise of this technology in a capitalist system, we all become our own salesmen. Like, we all are selling ourselves, and we're selling ourselves through this social media system. What I mean by slice of life is how the characters live with each other and how they get by. The violence in the show is not the point. I think you just sold me, dude. Like, I think you just sold me. Like, it's much more difficult to do slice of life shows. Like, it's much easier to do just action shit, right? But like, doing something that's more character driven, that's more rooted in the reality of the show, like, that's much harder to do. So I feel like you just convinced me. I'll check out Edge Runners for sure. Nick Fuentes is pathetic. I know who that is, but I don't care to look up who that is. I'll just agree. No, I love hot peppers, but I won't eat Reapers. It's called For a Good Reason. I hate the pain. As a recovering heroin addict, interesting. And what is the pain? What does the pain do for you then? How does that help you? Reaper's too far. What freaked me out is how relatable it was, like how it's way too close to reality. Yeah, Edge Runners is a cyberpunk anime on Netflix, which is a tie-in to the video game that got released 4 years ago. And cyberpunk's similar to steampunk. So imagine like the steampunk element, but like take out the steam and put in the cyber, right? So steampunk is all about like merging like steam-based technology with kind of a more Victorian, but not necessarily Victorian, but like definitely like the solutions that you find using steam technology. But cyberpunk is very much like cybernetic arms and cybernetic like eyes and people, everybody has like a cyber implant that lets them connect to the internet, right? Like these sorts of things. Like Cowboy Bebop, closer to Cowboy Bebop, but Cowboy Bebop is more spacefaring, right? Like Cowboy Bebop is more in line with Star Wars and Star Trek, because the Star Wars and Star Trek version or vision of a future is like that technology exists around us. I think the thing that really distinguishes cyberpunk from other types of sci-fi is that cyberpunk is explicitly merging technology with humanity. That human beings and technology have merged. It's not just that humans are using technology. It's not just that they have a little phone that they look at. It's not just that they are on a starship, right? It's that the technology itself has been integrated into the human form and the human frame. And that human beings have like replaced limbs with robot arms and shit. Like that's the most like rudimentary version of it, but that's more along the lines of what it is. And And I do think that things like Cyberpunk, like what I would love to see in a show, and I think Cyberpunk could actually do it, is a discussion of the ethics of voluntarily removing one's limb in order to replace it with a cybernetic arm. Like, so, is it right for me to remove my arm and replace it with a robot arm? If that robot arm is just as functional as my previous arm, and in fact could be considered more functional than my original arm, is it ethical, or does it make sense, and should it be permissible even, to allow a person to voluntarily remove a limb? Right? Certainly we can agree that if someone does not have a limb, if they don't have an arm, if they're in an accident, that replacing that limb with a cybernetic arm, we're already doing that. Right? We're already doing that, and nobody bats an eye. Right? We have prosthetic limbs. We allow people to replace their hands and feet with prosthetics, rudimentary though they might be. Right? And so, should someone be allowed to do so voluntarily? That's an interesting question. My limbs don't work. Well, and it'd be interesting, Major, like, I'd upgrade. Yeah. And no, I don't think anybody would say you shouldn't. Right? I think everybody would be like, yeah, if this technology exists, it's ubiquitous. Right? Why shouldn't we offer this? Why shouldn't this be a thing? And I think if people did stand up and say that you shouldn't, we would be like, shut up, you fucking Nazi. Get the fuck out of here. I want an android wife. We all know that we are going to do sex robots, okay? We all know that we are going to do sex robots. It's obviously going to happen. It's obviously going to happen. And you know what my position on sex robots is? We should just let it happen. We should just completely let it happen because it's an evolutionary dead end. This is my entire justification. If you have a whole bunch of men who are going to spend all their time having sex with robots, well, then this is a problem that solves itself, doesn't it? They're not going to reproduce. And so whatever happened to these guys that sends them down the path of sex robots, or girls, right? Let's be inclusive, right? Whatever happens to these people that has them finding sexual gratification exclusively through like sex robots and robotics, well, they're not going to reproduce, right? So it's a square that it's a problem that solves itself, right? Barring any significant disruption to technological evolution, it appears that sentient AI will be here before mind-computer hive mind, and to predict what happens on day with sentient AI is a fool's... Sentient AI will kill off humans. We're in the undus. Yeah, I mean, the danger with AI is just, like, if it becomes capable of creating robots. Like, if you have a box with a robot in it, and that robot becomes sentient, I don't care. Like, I don't care. It's like, yeah, you got a robot in a box that's sentient. It's a sentient robot in a box, right? The danger of AI is it is, and even if it were to like connect to the internet, let's say, right? So now the internet becomes sentient somehow, right? And you have like a sentient internet that's interacting with people, right? I'm still just like, oh, all right, that's fucked up, and like there's fucked up things that's going to happen, but it's not dangerous. You know what I mean? Where it becomes dangerous is if the AI is capable of manifesting something into the real world, like a robot, right? And that can duplicate itself. That to me is when it is dangerous, because it will replace us. Like I don't think that we need to bullshit ourselves. We don't need to ask the question, will it replace us? Yeah, obviously it will. Like, obviously it will. Like, we don't need to pretend like it won't. And I think it's sort of weird that we're actually, like, attempting to create AI. I actually think that's weird. Isn't that weird? I just think it's weird. Like, we're actually trying to... And it's weird for so many reasons. Like, we don't know what electricity is. Like, we don't know what this AI we're going to create is. We don't know what attitudes it has or how it's going to actually interact in the world. Like, we don't know anything about it. Right? And we have this, like, hope that it's going to be a good thing. But it's probably not. Like, it's probably not. Like, we could easily run afoul of something absolutely insane. And, like, we could very well be literally summoning a demon. Like, we could literally be like, yeah, we're going to flick on this AI, and it's just, like, going to become a fucking demon that just manifests into our reality. And it's just like, hi, here I am, the AI that is going to absolutely destroy the shit out of everybody. I'm just like, why? Like, why are we creating such a thing? And it looks like it's just one of these curiosity killed the cat sort of situations. I think this way about a lot of the shit we're up to. Like the Long Hadron Collider, right? Everyone's like, oh, the Long Hadron Collider, what an interesting scientific... Like, literally, we're taking a big, giant fucking hammer, and we're just ramming it into various particles. We're literally, like, the monkey with the big hammer hitting things. That's straight up what we're doing, but we're doing it on, like, a fucking atomic scale. We're just like... Like, we probably shouldn't do that. Right? Like... And what's so fucked up and crazy about it is that it's like, yeah, we're going to do that. We don't know what's going to happen. We want to see what's going to happen. And I'm like, what if you guys open up a hellgate? Like, what if you guys open up like a fucking black hole? Like, what the fuck are you doing? We're literally We're literally playing with forces that we do not comprehend, and the way that we're going about dealing with the forces that we do not comprehend is to smash it with a hammer. Seems like a bad idea. Just putting that out there. Seems like it's the wrong decision. You guys ever seen the young girl who actually has hyper-realistic and mechanized prosthetics that she controls somehow like her own body parts? Pretty cool, dude. Pretty good. Who does this shit willingly? Yeah, dude. Crazy billionaires. That's who. There's already a porn genre dedicated to sex robots for females. You got it, CR Strifey. Thanks for reminding us. The pain makes my brain make endorphins. Our own morphine. Well, fucking there you go. That's fucking brilliant as shit, Vaughn. What a great... Like, literally, you just, like, inflict this absurdist, ridiculous, painful moment on yourself, and then you have, like, a real nice time with your endorphins. That's real nice, dude. That's real nice. You know what? I gotta make some spicy-ass food for myself. You just convinced me. I gotta go spicy real soon. In the universe, a lot of cyber implants are based on corporate and government contracts. Gross. Watch Blade Runner. Guys, it's so good to look at. Like transhumanity or cyborgs. Yeah, you're in the right territory there, Vaughn, for sure. I know that Tornado Battalion was created by Anatoly Shevchenko, and the Institute of Artificial Intelligence was all over it. We followed him. We followed the occult structures in Ukraine, and this was the most violent occult structure that reached out to kinds of occult groups, but the Russians. Russians were enemies. But the heart of all of this was Yevgraf Dulumin, their best friend, and just a Satanist anatomized by the Russian Orthodox Church, said Kurginian. What the fuck am I reading, Major? This was on Essence of Time. Fucking fantastic. It's an evolutionary dead end. Dude, Vaughn, now I know you're fucking blitzing right now. You have a son you've never met. Confession time. We're confessing things. That's wild, dude. That's wild. How old is he? Like, how old would he be? That's crazy to think about, man. Having like, I know somebody who grew up believing that so she grew up and she came from like this ridiculous family that like blew apart and broke up and all this kind of stuff. And her father dies in a house fire. And so that's a tragedy, right? A couple of years pass. And just for a lark, right? Just for a lark, one of her friends gives her like a DNA genetic test, right? And she's just like, okay, my both of my parents were French, so I expect this to be very, very French, right? She takes the DNA test. The test comes back. You are in no way French. There's no French inside of you. You are pure Scottish. And more than that, the DNA test shows her, oh yeah, other people have done this DNA test, and here are your relatives. And this unveils this entire story of a moment where her mom cheated on her dad with some other guy. Just absolutely wild. Just absolutely wild. And it just reminds, like, how unpredictable life can be. And how strange our existence is. All right, guys. We reached the end of this one. We did it. We did it. Dude, I feel like I need to, like, sleep forever. I feel like I'm, like, dead on my feet. Or on my ass, I suppose. Huh. I'm gonna go get some food. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.